wait.
I think they're realizing that the wheels are coming off
So,
the
Joe,
bus
are
over there.
affairs disqualifying? This one. Yeah. Marital affairs.
To be clear, I think the Nazi tattoo is disqualifying. I think the idea that women are responsible for their own rapes is completely disqualifying, and he should be punched in the face. To be frank with you, I mean,
Yet another heated debate unfolded on Abby Phillip's show, with Joe Borelli leading the charge as he bent over backward to defend Republicans while casting Democrats as the ones to blame. Tonight, we're going to take a closer look at several moments from this Abby Phillip panel featuring Joe Borelli and other guests, and I'll also give my perspective on some of the arguments and claims that were made throughout the discussion. Let's get right into it and break everything down together.
Tonight, does scandal matter anymore in American politics? Senate races in Maine and in Texas suggest that voters are willing to overlook what was once seen as disqualifying. We're learning Democrat Graham Plattner reportedly shared sexually explicit messages with multiple women in the early days of his marriage. His wife flagged the text to a campaign aide last year as a potential liability for him. Plattner has faced significant controversy over a series of offensive online posts that he has since apologized for, and for a tattoo widely recognized as a Nazi symbol that he has since covered up. Meanwhile, in Texas, as Republicans accuse Democratic State Senator James Talarico of being a vegan, the man Donald Trump is endorsing, Ken Paxton, has faced fraud charges, 16 articles of impeachment, accusing him of corruption and bribery and allegations of infidelity. Paxton's criminal charges ended in a pretrial agreement, and he was ultimately acquitted in his impeachment proceedings following a 2-week trial. Joe, let's start with you. You just wrote this about.
yeah, Joe. You know all about Joe, you know about bribery.
Not you, Joe. The other Joe.
Okay, which one?
This one.
Joe, let's go to you.
You wrote a book called Life of the Party, How the Democrats Lost America's Trust and How They Can Win It Back. What is your take on this Graham Plattner situation and the fact that Democrats are doing what I would argue maybe Republicans have been doing since 2016 and just saying, they're shrugging.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, right? And I'll withhold my comments about, the Republican Party speaking from the high ground of moral clarity, which I don't believe that they do, considering the candidates that are running this cycle under the Republican banner. But I want to speak specifically to the Democratic Party. And look, because of last cycle and the ones leading up to, I think the bar for entry, the Democratic Party, has been placed so low because we put it there. Democrats right now just want a candidate who can speak plain English and communicate to voters and be authentic and talk about issues that resonate with people. Not, these obtuse issues like whether it be save democracy and so vague. They want actual things that can drive down the cost of price and make life affordable and just speak like a normal American and enter Graham Plattner, and so I think he's enjoyed a lot of that success, mainly as a Democrat because he doesn't sound like a Democrat. And he doesn't look like a Democrat. And I think that says a lot about where the party currently is right now.
But is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Well, because when you put the bar low, then anybody can jump over.
It needs a reset. It needs people, though, who can speak normally and not talk down to people and not talk at them or above them, but can communicate with voters. And then can speak to the issues themselves. And again, it's been reset, of course. But we're going through that process right now, considering everything the Democratic Party came through in 2024 with Biden and then Harris.
But I think we have lost the plot on authenticity. I think Graham Plattner is cosplaying working class. He wears it like a Halloween costume, and that has been placed on him by the same people who have run a lot of progressive candidates across the nation. In this pursuit of getting to know the everyman, we keep picking these people who I think show the worst parts of society. If I am to believe that Graham Plattner can relate to everyday Americans, then that means I am to believe that everyday Americans are okay with Nazi tattoos because they get them accidentally when they're drunk, or because they served in the military. They have very regressive views on race and on gender. I just cannot accept the fact that to gain the working class, we have to dress up people who show the lowest of our values.
It does speak to how hungry Democrats are for new blood, though.
Then give them a real anti-establishment people.
Governor Janet Mills is a very credible person. Governor Janet Mills is very credible, and she lost.
Right.
New leadership.
This is just
also someone under 50.
Voters have a say in this. And if you look at the numbers, Graham Plattner, he has only gotten more popular, since the controversies, since the tattoo, since all of it. That's a real thing. And then, down in Texas, where Ken Paxton was going up against John Cornyn, all of the dirt is out there on Ken Paxton. And I was looking at some favorability and unfavorability numbers for the two of them, Paxton and Cornyn. And voters are just as favorable toward Paxton as they are to Cornyn. They are not the same. But voters don't seem to care about the scandals.
Well, I would be very clear. They are not the same. Ken Paxton was acquitted at his trial in the Senate of the crimes he was accused of.
But his wife has accused him of things that has led her to seek a divorce on biblical grounds. So,
and I am sure we're going to hear. I'm sure we're going to hear all about it.
There's a lot of corruption, but there's a lot of personal issues too with him.
But just to be clear, on the corruption stuff, that he was impeached by the Texas House, he was acquitted by the Texas Senate. So I think we should be clear about that. That is not the same as someone who has exhibited a pattern over 20 years. I mean, it's not just the Nazi tattoo.
There's a pattern of prosecuting.
It's not just the Nazi. It's the belief that women are responsible for their own. I mean, that's appalling and absurd. To have someone believe that women are somehow responsible for being. To have people who obviously, sexually message their women while they're married, like these are all bad things, and they just keep getting worse with Graham Plattner. And I think Democrats, as you've seen, a couple of them make pretty strong statements against him. I think they're realizing that the wheels are coming off the bus.
Are affairs disqualifying? This one. Marital affairs.
To be clear, I think the Nazi tattoo is disqualifying. I think the idea that women are responsible for their own is completely disqualifying, and he should be punched in the face, to be frank with you. I mean, that's an appalling thing to say. I think that's different from someone who's accused of bribery and was acquitted. I think that's someone who has issues with his wife that we're going to all hear. We are going to hear all about Ken Paxton's divorce as the trial, I believe, even starts while he's campaigning.
Joe Borelli and many Republicans often speak as though they hold the moral high ground in these debates, but that argument becomes much harder to make when the leader of their own party is Donald Trump. Trump remains one of the most controversial and divisive political figures in modern American history, and critics frequently point to his personal conduct, business practices, allegations of corruption, and what they view as a willingness to use public office for personal gain. Because of that, Republicans face an uphill battle when they try to position themselves as the arbiters of morality. They can criticize others and claim that certain behavior is unacceptable, but those arguments tend to lose their force when many of the same criticisms have been directed at Trump himself. Trump regularly makes headlines for inflammatory remarks and controversial actions, which is why many voters simply tune out these kinds of attacks. As Phillip notes, a large number of Americans are exhausted by the constant drama and scandals, and are far more interested in leaders who can improve their daily lives. If someone breaks the law, that is obviously a serious matter, but when it comes to personal issues such as affairs, many voters no longer view that as the deciding factor it once may have been. Democrats are also often seen as more consistent on this subject because they generally do not spend as much time publicly condemning people over affairs in the way many MAGA supporters and Republican figures do. Republicans are frequently quick to attack Democrats over personal controversies, yet many of those same people continue to strongly support Donald Trump despite the numerous affairs and personal scandals that have surrounded him for years.
Graham Plattner's scandal is over sexting with staffers. Let me just read. I have to read this statement because this is from his wife. His wife told CNN and reporters, I confided deeply personal details about my marriage to someone who I considered a friend. In the months since, I've had to watch as she spreads malicious gossip to anyone who would take her call. I trusted this person with the most private chapter of our lives, the early days of our marriage before any campaign was on our mind, and I'm deeply hurt by her betrayal and invasion of our privacy. I know who Graham is. I know the man that I married and the husband that he has been to me on the best and worst days of my life. That hasn't changed, and it won't. That is what his wife says. But the piece of this is that it's adding to many things. But our voters sort of they just don't care about, I mean, and maybe I should go further back because, Donald Trump has cheated allegedly on his spouses before. He's been divorced several times. There was also Bill Clinton. Are we done with this stuff? Do personal mistakes not matter in politics?
Sadly, I mean, I'm nostalgic for a time when Bush getting a DUI or Obama smoking weed was shocking and led the news for a couple weeks. And sadly, I think we're at a point in American politics where it isn't disqualifying. And it's funny. I mean, I was kind of surprised to see the reaction from folks like Cory Booker now sort of raising questions about support for Graham Plattner in light of these affairs, because frankly, adultery and infidelity now seems so ubiquitous in American politics. So to me, that wasn't even the most shocking thing. I think Democrats, though, now are trying to backpedal a little bit because they realize it's this constant drip, drip, drip. It wasn't just the Totenkopf tattoo. It wasn't just the basically making fun of veterans for getting shot at. It wasn't the sexual acts in porta potty. It's continuing to drip, drip, drip. And so I think they're kind of aware that maybe they've made this Faustian bargain. And bear in mind, I think for so long they tried to say, oh, we have the moral high ground because Donald Trump. That was their argument for everything. And so now they've somehow embraced somebody with a Nazi tattoo. I mean, it's kind of beyond the pale.
Yeah.
And I would also note too, but this is all in the name of getting out Susan Collins, who is the most moderate Republican in the Senate. It's a really tough situation for them to say, oh yeah, elect this guy with the Nazi tattoo to beat out Susan Collins.
Right. Okay. These personal and professional failings by both of these bad men are not disqualifying, but they might lose them the election. It might be enough because not everyone cares that they're allegedly corrupt and allegedly taking bribe. It is a pattern with Paxton, by the way. A lot of different accusations, but some people do, and that could be the difference in these tight races. And they didn't have to choose these people who have these problematic records. And I'll just say one last thing: as someone maybe the only tattooed person on the panel, that you know what your tattoo is, okay?
Yeah.
No, I have 2 tattoos. I know exactly what they mean, okay? Because they're tattooed on my body. And if I got drunk and got something tattooed, I wouldn't keep it for 15 years without checking it out. You know, you could Google it now. You do a Google image. 15 years, 17 years later, I don't buy it. I think people know what their tattoos are. I'm here to tell you.
Now I want to know what your tattoos are.
Show us during the break.
That's a commercial break.
Next for us.
One of the more surprising moments earlier in the discussion was hearing Republicans criticize Talarico for being a vegan. Just stop and think about that for a second. They were acting as though someone's personal diet is some kind of major controversy, as if deciding not to eat certain foods is supposed to be a serious political problem. If that's the strongest criticism they can level against someone, then it really doesn't sound like they have much of an argument. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being vegan if that's the lifestyle a person chooses, and trying to turn that into an attack says far more about the people making the accusation than it does about Talarico himself. We'll see how things play out for him in Texas, but if Republicans think that focusing on his diet is a winning message, I'm not convinced that's going to resonate with many voters. Joe Cunningham also raised an interesting point during the panel when he argued that Democratic voters are searching for authentic politicians, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. Many people have grown tired of polished political figures who sound scripted and rehearsed every time they step in front of a camera. Voters increasingly want leaders who feel genuine, relatable, and real. Some politicians struggle to create that connection, and Josh Shapiro is one example that comes to mind because he can sometimes come across as overly calculated, even down to what many people see as an attempt to mirror Barack Obama's speaking style. At the same time, there are Democrats who are widely viewed as authentic. Bernie Sanders is probably one of the most genuine figures in American politics, even if he represents an older generation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is another politician who comes across as sincere, and Ro Khanna also strikes many people as someone who communicates in a straightforward and honest way. Those kinds of politicians absolutely exist, which is why I think Joe Cunningham made an important observation on Abby Phillip's show. Democratic voters, along with many independents, seem to be placing a higher value on authenticity than almost anything else. They want leaders who sound like real people rather than politicians who appear to be reading carefully prepared talking points. Maybe MAGA supporters like Joe Borelli are comfortable continuing to defend what many critics view as one of the least truthful political movements in modern American politics, but a lot of other voters appear to be searching for something different. Let me know what you think about the debate involving Joe Borelli and the rest of the panel on Abby Phillip's show. Do you believe we've reached a point where political scandals no longer carry much weight because Donald Trump and his administration have been surrounded by so many controversies over the years? Or do you think voters have simply become desensitized to it all and now care more about whether a candidate can deliver results regardless of that person's past behavior? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm Carter on Culture, and I'll catch you in the next one.